Finding resources that our students love is hard. You think you found the perfect lesson on one of those super famous resource sites for teachers, only for it to go down like a lead balloon amongst your 10-year-olds. What might be engaging for you as a mature adult probably isn't so much fun for your primary students, especially if it's been designed for them to learn English. So how can we find things that really engage our students? Keep watching and I'll share 5 tips for finding resources that your students will be dying to get their hands on. Okay, so I may have been exaggerating slightly with that last sentence, but there are things out there that are better than a random worksheet on Teachers Pay Teachers. First tip, look outside of ELT. We can get into the habit of searching the internet for ELT materials specifically, and while these will probably be better in terms of the language level, they can sometimes be a bit dry. So we can also look at websites aimed at educators in general. By venturing into these other educational domains, you can discover materials on a much wider variety of topics that your students might find interesting. So here are a few avenues that you could explore. If you're teaching primary students, visit educational websites for K-12 in the US and KS1 and KS2 in the UK. These websites offer loads of resources that are designed to engage and educate learners of specific age groups. You can find reading materials, videos, interactive games, and printable worksheets on these topics. You may need to adapt the language so that it meets your target objectives, but that's a small price to pay if your students are curious and motivated to learn. You can also check out websites from educational publishers. Many educational publishers offer free or affordable resources for teachers, and there are some really wonderful non-fiction books out there on different topics such as wildlife or ancient civilizations, and they often have enticing illustrations and photos. And these materials are often designed by experts in those fields, and they can provide a fresh perspective on these interesting topics. Again, they won't be designed specifically for English language learners, so some adaptation of the language may be required. You can also read teaching or educational blogs. Sometimes these blogs are written by experienced teachers and they can have loads of different ideas and resources. And particularly when they're non-ELT websites, when they're for general education, you can come across some really innovative approaches and really engaging materials for your classroom. So think about how you could adapt these ideas for your learners, providing any necessary scaffolding for the language that you expect them to understand or use. My second tip is to look outside of education. Sometimes the best resources for engaging young learners can be found outside of the confines of the educational world. Here are a couple of more unconventional sources worth exploring. The first one is to watch kids' TV or kids' YouTube channels. YouTube is a treasure trove of content created specifically for children, and there are all kinds of things on there, from science experiments to storytelling sessions, and probably lots of unsuitable stuff too. But let's face it, kids spend a lot of time watching YouTube, so it can help to see what they're watching. This can give us insights into the kinds of things they enjoy. There are also channels that offer semi-educational videos that can enhance your lessons and spark your students' curiosity. But I'm not telling you to find any channel they like and play it in class, as that could lead to unsuitable materials. Did I ever tell you about the time I played a homemade Peppa Pig video and the characters got slightly violent? No? That was the last time I played a video in class without watching it all the way through beforehand. I learnt my lesson, and I'm not really that irresponsible, honestly. I was just short of time that particular day. So use YouTube videos as inspiration and then see what suitable materials you can find. Another thing that can be fun to do is to take a trip to the library if it has a good children's section. Even if the books are in your students' home language, it can still be a source of inspiration. And you can use picture books in other languages too. You can translate, or you can make up the story as you go along, or even better, have the children tell the story using the pictures. You could even take students on a trip to the library or spend a lesson in the school library if you have one. And if this isn't possible, you could borrow books yourself and have a library shelf in your classroom. Finally, a visit to a shopping centre can give you hints towards what your students might be into. I'm not telling you to take your students to the shopping centre, but go yourself. Browse around the toy shops and see what's on at the cinema. This can inspire you to develop themed materials that engage your learners because it's on the things they're really interested in. Tip number 3 is to look around you. Inspiration can be found all around us. So by taking a moment to observe our surroundings, we can stumble on engaging resources that can resonate with our younger learners. Here are some tips for finding resources in unexpected places. First, stop and observe. As you go about your day, pause and take notice of your surroundings. Look down at the ground, look up at the sky, and observe the world through the eyes of a child. You might find interesting objects, textures, or natural elements that can spark creativity and serve as hands-on resources. Take a bag with you and collect anything interesting that you find, and then take it to class for the students to explore. If you've ever worked with the under 5s, you'll know that they often have their pockets full of random objects like small stones and sticks. They can be obsessed with a stick. You can also take photos and then show them on a digital whiteboard or screen. You can also find things at home. Look around your own home for everyday objects that can be repurposed as teaching aids. These can be things from kitchen utensils to household items, and you'll be surprised by the things you already have at your disposal. Foods, unusual objects, pictures, decorative items, they can all make great lesson starters, and you can invite your students to bring in interesting objects too. Tip 4 is look inside yourself. This one might sound a bit mystical, but sometimes the best resources come from our own experiences. Reflecting on your own childhood can provide valuable insights into what engages young learners. Try to remember what it was like to be 5 or 7 or 9 years old and tap into those memories to create meaningful and engaging lesson ideas. Try to drag up memorable experiences that you have and explore why they are so memorable. Then you can try to create similar experiences in your classroom. For example, I remember a couple of scenes from primary school particularly well. One was when the teacher brought in live slugs for us to observe and to make clay models of. The other is my teacher reading a chapter of the Iron Man to us towards the end of each day. Now, I can't remember her voice exactly. More than 35 years have passed since then, but I do remember the lighting and the general sensation of being engaged in the story, but slightly sleepy, probably because we had to put our heads down on the desks while she read. Now, maybe that was her plan the whole time, to get us to fall asleep. But use your own memories to help you identify what your students may enjoy. Finally, tip number 5 is to look to your students. One of the most effective ways to find engaging resources is by involving your students in the process. Just ask them. Ask them about their hobbies, their interests, and their favourite pastimes. Inquire about the books they read, the toys they play with, the shows they watch, and the YouTube channels they subscribe to. By understanding their preferences, you can tailor your lessons to their interests. And you can also get students to co-create class materials for you. They can create reading texts or audio or video recordings for their classmates, and they can write comprehension questions. Or they could create them for a group of younger students or students with a lower level of English. Being involved in creating materials for others is really rewarding, and students can take it very seriously. Finding engaging resources for your Young Learner ELT class may seem challenging at times, but just remember to look outside of ELT, to look around your surroundings and draw from your own experiences, and of course involve your students in the process. That way you can create a classroom experience that will inspire and engage your students. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel, just use what you've got available. Let me know where you find engaging resources and materials for your young learners in the comments below. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe for more Young Learner teaching content.